Yes, well done. So there seems to be some technical problems with using these Facebook Lives at the moment. So
Yeah.
it's not you, don't worry. It's just it's
Ah,
taking its time to connect. So we
no,
just
I've just spent 5 minutes going like, oh my God, I'm here.
well, we're glad you're here and we're glad you can see you now. That's
Thank
fantastic.
you, thank
So
you.
so as you know, I've just been doing a bit of an introduction, but obviously, this is your chance to really tell us about you and why, who you are, and what you're doing, and sort of why really. So over
Okay.
to you, Lindsay.
Okay, so my name is Lindsay Banks, and I set up a company called NRG Healing about 3 years ago. I'd lost one of my best friends to cancer, and then I decided to get divorced several months later. So I did what anyone else would do and decide to start a business. So it was
Why not?
exactly as you do. And it was very much in the beginning a way of distracting myself from all the pain and the hurt and everything else that was going on. And initially, it was just about Reiki and crystals because that was all that I really knew how to do at the time. I'd been a full-time mum for sort of 5 years, and I hadn't been in the business world, and I didn't really want to go back to work for someone else because I
Mm,
had small children.
yeah,
So I wanted that flexibility and just to be able like to be responsible for myself
yeah.
and yeah, just to sort of do what I wanted to do and when I wanted to do it. So I don't really like being told what to do.
And
So
I
I'm
think
not a very good.
yeah, I think that's happening more and more, especially with women who have young children. And
Mm,
once we realize that we do have a worth and that we can do something else and we can work from home and it be flexible around the kids, and if they're poorly that we can have that time off around work. I was listening to
absolutely.
something on Radio 4 the other day, and I think there's about 67% now of women are self-employed, and
Mm,
that's quite a
massive number.
substantial, yeah, quite a substantial amount.
Yeah, so yeah, so over the last few years, I've spent a lot of time networking with more conventional businesses, because I said I wanted to bring the unconventional to the conventional, which was
Mm-hmm.
fun. I've had like, accountants and solicitors sat there meditating whilst I've been talking about sort of moon cycles and God knows what. And yeah, so over time, sort of like my my spiritual journey, if you like, has really developed.
Mm.
So I part of what I do now is I offer what I call intuitive energy healing. So this is done either in person or distance. So I never used to believe in the distance thing. I used to think, oh my God, how can I tune into someone's energy when they're like miles away?
Mm.
But working with several people, I was like, can I just test it and see? Because I'd watched a documentary about energy, and
Mm.
when just sort of like the penny drops,
Yes.
and I was like, oh, I'm getting now. So I did a test with a lady, and it was really bizarre because I did a chakra check for her
Mm.
just to see if there was any imbalances. And what came out for her was a solar plexus chakra felt very blocked. And I
Mm-hmm.
said to her, I said, I don't know why, but I feel it's something to do with apples. And then I said, I felt her throat chakra was blocked. And again, I felt as if that was something to do with watching TV and remembering a person who'd passed, but she hadn't fully grieved for. And she came back and she went, Lindsay, I made an apple juice this morning with 7 apples, skin on. And she went, I've never had such bad indigestion. She went, my stomach was just so bloated. And I was just like, oh my God, it just blew me away. And then she said she'd also watched a movie the night before where one of the actors had reminded her of her granddad. And so she'd welled up and she'd felt this choking feeling around her throat because she'd felt
Yeah.
like she wanted to say something.
Yeah.
And it just blew me away. So I was like, right, definitely this distance healing stuff does work.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I offer it in person or distance where I do chakra checks and chakra balancing. Um, in person, I use crystals as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I finish with either like drumming or some smudging with sage. And yeah, I do the tarot cards now. I do angel cards. I've just dipped into past life readings as well, which is really fun.
Oh,
So,
fabulous. Yes, I love
oh,
doing things like that. It's great, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And it's really because I found when I was doing recently, when I've been doing healings, a lot of people's past life has been coming through to give them a lesson for this lifetime and explain a little bit more about what they need to learn. So I thought, oh, I'll just try again, ask for a few guinea pigs. And I was just sort of like asking about their name and saying, right, can you give me a past life of this person's and a lesson that they need to learn now? And so I was getting something through. I was being taken back. I've been to Australia where someone was like a convict. I've been to like Rome. I've been to Greece. I've been to different countries in different times for everyone. And a lot of the feedback is like, yep, that resonates. That makes sense. That makes sense. So yeah, so it's sort of taken its own sort of path really now.
Fantastic. So, is it possible for you to explain? Because there's a lot of people won't actually understand what you're talking about here,
Right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
what this actually means and how it works. So,
Hmm.
if you can explain, actually, are you tuning into specific angels, or are you tuning into what are you tuning into for the people that you're doing this with?
So I
And
feel as if,
what does tuning in mean, just
hmm,
for the people watching?
okay. So if you think that, beyond this physical being that you can touch, that you are an energy being. So if you can think of yourself as an energy being as opposed to a physical being, that's sort of the very beginning of the process. And then, so when I tune in, I basically ask the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you want to have for it, um, what does this person need to know most? And and then I sort of receive guidance and messages. Um, so the more I feel as if the more work we do on ourselves in terms of healing our energy side of us, the more in tune we can become with feeling the energy of others,
Mhm.
and also with tuning into source as well, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm. Mm.
So
Fantastic.
in terms, yeah, so in terms of angels, so personally, I've because I always used to think, oh, it's the universe or source, but I do a lot of channeled writing as well, which
Mm.
comes through for my books. And it was only earlier this year that I heard of a group of beings called the Pleidians. Have you heard of those?
No?
Okay, so they're basically higher beings. Some people call them ETs, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them. And they're basically from what's called the Pleiadian galaxy.
Oh,
And
yes. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes. Just
so
not that many. Yeah.
a lot of the things that I'm writing are very universal, very based on love, on truth, etc., and honesty. So I feel as if the channeling that I'm doing, some of the information's coming from them,
Mm-hmm.
some of the information comes from spirit, and some just comes from my spirit guides, and some comes from source. So yeah.
Fantastic. So how interesting is that? Fabulous. So who, this is going to be an interesting one. So who inspires you then?
You know what? I was thinking about this earlier, and I think like I've never really been drawn to what you would call like really famous role models.
Mm.
I feel as if my inspiration comes from everyday conversations that I have with people I meet. I have sort of this I don't know what you would call it. I've always spoken to strangers. I love speaking to new people, and meeting new people. And I love hearing their stories. And when I speak to people, just the stuff that they've gone through in their lives, or the traumas or the challenges, my heart just goes out to them, and I just think, wow, you've gone through so much, you're still here, you're doing something that's amazing. And for me, it's sort of mostly everyday people that I meet who are tirelessly like working or have a cause or who are doing something that isn't necessarily publicized, and they're not making a massive deal of it.
Mm.
They see it as that this is their passion and this is what they're meant to do. um but I recently went to America, to Denver, in
Mm.
May, and
Great.
I went to visit the Molly Brown Museum. Have you heard of
Oh,
Molly
wow.
Brown?
Yeah. Really? Gosh, I bet that was interesting.
It was honestly, I felt so inspired after visiting that museum because, and I bought myself a little keyring which says, "What would Molly Brown do?" Because
For the
I
for
just,
the viewers, can you just explain who Molly Brown is?
yeah, so she was basically, she was living in America and she married a man who worked in the silver mines, and it was at a time when the silver was like, really sort of like, what do you call it, like expensive
Hmm.
or worth a lot of money. And then there was a crash and the silver wasn't worth anything. So her and her husband became really poor overnight. She was an Irish Catholic, well, she'd been born to Irish Catholic parents. Um, and then her husband went off and said to the guy who owned the mine, "I think there's gold in there. Can I mine for gold?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, but you've got to do it for free." So he did it for free and he found gold. So again, instantly they became millionaires overnight. And she was on Titanic. She'd been off traveling. She spoke 7 languages. She'd been on Titanic when it had gone down, and she had got into one of the rowing boats with, I think it was 11 other people. And she said to the other 11, the only way everyone's going to stay alive in this boat is if we take it in turns to row. So they all took it in turns to row. And when the rescue boat came, her boat was the only one where they were all still alive in it. She then got on the rescue boat and she said, "Right, we need to raise money for the families
Hmm.
of those who've passed on the boat." And she was writing down everyone's names, and how much they donated. And the families who said they weren't donating, she left the list in the dining room to sort of shame them. so by so then they felt really bad, so they started writing down their names. And by the time she landed back in New York, I think they'd raised like $10,000, which back then was obviously a lot of
Yeah,
money for
money.
the families. Yeah, so she became like a patron. And one of the things I loved as well about her was that at a time when it was like the fashion and the thing to wear corsets, she was like, "I'm not wearing one of those." So instead, she got a punch bag in our garage and she would go out every night and punch the punch bag so she didn't have to wear a corset. And I was just like, respect.
Fantastic. No, that I didn't know. Fantastic. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what wisdom? Because this is really Women with Wisdom that we're doing at the moment. So, what wisdom would you like to share with the group today, Lindsay?
So I think a reminder that if you're on a spiritual journey or a spiritual path, that it isn't always easy. So I think some people have this idea that when you start a spiritual journey, it's like, oh, it's so easy, reaching enlightenment. I just sit and meditate every day and it'll be all fine. But it's about. I love that you're laughing, Rachel, because obviously you've been there. So I think it's
Yes,
about.
I might not be able to stop laughing now. So,
Yeah, sorry. So I think when you start on this spiritual path or the spiritual journey or whatever you want to call it, it's about recognizing that there will be challenges and there will be things sent to try you basically.
oh, you will be
Um,
tested.
yeah, and you're definitely tested. And the universe, like if you don't learn your lessons, the universe will just keep sending them until you sort of surrender and go, okay, what do I need to know in this situation? Um, so I feel as if, so what I would want to share is it's about being kind to yourself. You are only human. Yeah. If you have blips, don't, like, it's so easy for us to beat ourselves up and be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have done that. But just be kind to yourself, surrender. So when we're fighting and when we're going against the stuff that isn't meant for us, it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be really hard. But when we just say, oh, right, I surrender everything, I'm just going to follow the path that I'm meant to, you just find things sort of like drop in front of you and doors become open and opportunities present themselves. But it's just about starting to recognize and notice all of those signs.
It is. And when Lindsay says that, it's those things that we call sort of synchronicities that show you that you're on the right path. So, the same song might, I think we said this yesterday, the same song might start playing and you keep hearing the same artist or a book, or you keep meeting the same person, or unfortunately, you might get the same lesson over and over again until you learn what you're supposed to learn from that experience. Because we get so much from the experiences of life that a certain memory will give us certain emotions, and we might deal with one of those emotions from that event, but there might be 3 or 4 other emotions that are also attached to that event that we're not really clear about the first time. So the second time we get another situation that relates very similarly to the past is because we still have to clear those other emotions out of it. Okay, and that's how it sort of progresses, and this letting go and this spiritual journey that we're on, I think you'll probably agree, Lindsay, it is a stage by stage, so that we can release. We're ready to be able to release things. We're because it is hard work. That there are times when we think, I don't want to do this again. I just want to carry on doing what I'm doing. But once we do surrender to it, and we do sit back and go, okay, what do I have to learn from this? And we literally do have to go, okay, if I am struggling so much with what I am doing, obviously there's something I'm missing. There's something I'm missing and I'm not dealing with, that I perhaps might need to go back to it for a little, just a short while. Go back, look into it, locate what it is, take that gem with you, and then you can move on with that gem to the next stage of your life. Would you agree with that, Lindsay?
Yeah, and I think as well, the other thing that I talk about with some of my students is that, when you think that you've healed maybe a particular situation or a particular, relationship, the more that you're learning and the more tools that you sort of get under your belt, it comes up again because you've got a new tool or a new way of dealing with it. So you might think, oh, that's all gone to bed now. I've dealt with that situation, I've dealt with that person. But then because we're constantly learning new things, and ascending and raising our vibration, then there's a new tool that we have. So it'll come up again and it's like, right, I didn't have this tool 5 years ago, 3 years ago, but I have it now. So now I'll use that tool to help me with this situation.
That's right. And we're constantly, it is like being, a workman or woman, with learning all these new modalities, whether that be you learning it and becoming a therapist practitioner yourself, or just going and visiting one to help you clear, because your path is to do something else. You just need I always say, go and have a good clear out every season. Every spring, go and have a good clear out, every summer, autumn, winter, because if you relate how we shed naturally, like nature does, then we become more in tune with Mother Earth, we become more in tune with our environment, and it brings us closer in tune with ourselves. So when you work on yourself and you have major clear outs, don't just think that's it, because it's not.
No. And if that was it, that would be the end, wouldn't it? It would be like, oh, I'm fabulous now, that's it. But obviously we've got to keep moving forward, and then there's that progression as well, isn't it? So yeah,
absolutely. And the thing is, once you're on this journey, you don't want to stop learning, do you? Because it is beautiful. It's not easy, but it's beautiful. So how do you see this, what you're doing? Do you see any of this as a connection to Mother Earth, or?
Yes. So I think, and again, it's something that's recently that I've come to realize is it's that that everything is one. So that connection. So it's not just about, healing the person or giving them healing, because that person then goes out and it's like a ripple effect, like you said. So even if someone comes for healing, they don't want to be a healer or therapist, then by allowing them to sort of get rid of baggage or whatever, they might go out and they'll start planting their seeds, which is what I call it, and creating what they want to create. So I do see it as that, everything's, I can never say this word, cyclical.
Yeah.
And so I very much work with the moon cycles as well. I work with the full moon and the new moon. And sometimes I wake up and go and watch a sunrise. Sometimes I see something. And I think it's being aware of the nature around us. I hug trees. My kids are like, "Mummy, what are you doing?" But do you know what I mean? Like, and it's just getting sort of like the energy from the trees and, going into a forest and a wood and just having that pure, clear energy around you
Mm.
just help to revitalize you again, if you as an energy being. And it just really sort of, I think it just brings you back down to earth, and it makes you realize and recognize that, there's more to life than social media or watching TV. Do you know what I mean? It's about getting out and about and just learning to connect again with the earth.
Mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this last full moon, I think it was Saturday night, we were up on the wild moors drumming with the moon,
Oh, look.
and literally we couldn't see the moon as we were at the top of this hill. And then
Mhm.
as everyone started to drum, this beautiful orange glow just appeared from behind the clouds.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was the feeling that you get from doing something like that and being so connected, and having that real tribal going back to basics. People, it was a little bit damp up there, but people were there barefoot, really grounding themselves and
Yeah.
being connected completely. And then when the drumming started, it really felt quite tribal, and
Yeah.
it was a really spectacular, beautiful, beautiful evening. It was lovely.
Oh.
Yes. In fact, I'm relaxing just thinking about it now. So now we do have, Lindsay, a lot of parents who are struggling with children who have anxiety, and especially anxiety about the future, because ecologically, globally, there is so much turmoil going on that not only the anxiety of their own family, of their own school, of their own community, but they're actually taking on the troubles of the world.
Mm.
And a lot of parents are struggling with that, and are taking the children to the doctors thinking that there might be a quick fix for this.
Yeah.
What are your views on that?
So a lot of the children who have been born, who are, I would say, sort of 0 to 15, 0 to 16, they're sort of the new generation, if you like. So they are very sensitive to all energies around us. So, in terms of people, that can absorb everyone else's energies very easily. So a really simple exercise that I would recommend would be teaching children how to ground and protect themselves. So a really simple tool. So I tell my children, if they're ever in trouble or if they ever feel scared, to ask Archangel Michael for help, because he's got his big sword and his big shield. But yeah, a really simple grounding and protecting exercise you can teach your children is going out on the grass in bare feet, like you just mentioned, and standing there or walking around even with bare feet will ground them naturally without them
Mhm.
having to think how to do it. And then in terms of protection, use their imagination depending on their age. So if they're little, you can, say, oh, do you want to dress up like Superman? So let's put on your magic cloak and let's put on like a hat. Do you know what I mean? And using whatever imagery feels right for your age group to give them that sense of protection from other people's energies. Um, if you could, like, I never watch the news, I never have the news on the radio, so my children don't have any idea, what's going on. We went to a hairdresser's and they had a copy of The Sun lying on the tables. And my 7-year-old was looking, he's like, oh, what's that? And on the front cover is the picture of a man just covered in blood. And I
Mm.
was just like, you're too young. Do you know what I mean? So I hid the paper. The only good picture that I could find for him was of like a pug who'd eaten 10 rubber ducks. So I was like, that's the only nice picture you can see in this newspaper. So I think in
Mm.
terms of sort of not like, I mean, yeah, not watching the news, not having the news on so they can hear it,
Yeah,
not seeing the news because it's always on the news. It's the worst possible things that has ever sort of happened in life.
yeah.
And you don't want your children to be sort of like absorbing all that crap. Because that's what I feel most of the media is, to be honest. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Yeah,
but
I wonder
yeah, and
if they actually started to, put good things up, you know, the good things that people are doing.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't sell papers, does it? Writing about good stuff.
Well,
So
no, will they?
yeah. So in terms of sort of like doing that protection, you can use crystals. So crystals again, such as black tourmaline, is a really good one to remove any negative energy from kids. And I suppose in terms of like thinking about the environment, you know, and rather than them worrying and thinking, oh my God, there might not be a planet for us to live on, it's like, right, well, what can we do now to reduce, you know, what the environment's going to look like in the future? So putting it more in a positive spin. So like I've said to my kids, I'm like, never buying you any more drinks when we're out, no fruit shoots because they're just plastic bottles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, we have our juice bottles, we'll take those out with us. You know, if you're thirsty, we'll get refills of water, that's it.
Yeah.
And they're quite, do you know what I mean? Considering they're only 7 and 4, that they're on board with them, they're happy with it because I've done it and I've spoken to them in a way that it's like, this will benefit us in the future and the planet, etc. So yeah, and just getting outside, getting outdoors, you know, switch your screens off, get their tablets off them, and just send them outside with a football. And just
Absolutely.
being
Get
outside
outside
really
as much
helps.
as possible. You can't
Definitely,
beat
yeah.
it. You know, you really
No.
can't. Well, Lindsay, I can't thank you enough. That's that wealth of information. Do put all your book details, contact details, etc., in the comments below. And we look forward to hearing from you guys to let us have some feedback on today. Let us know what you think, and say hi to Lindsay. That'd be lovely. So thank you very much. Really enjoyed
Thank
it.
you, Rachel. Thank
Okay,
you.
take care. Bye.
Bye.